Greetings and salutations. I'm your humble host Steve, here with some thoughts on another movie I've watched recently. This one being The Thrillkillers, one of the key components of the Ray Dennis Steckler filmography. As it notes on the box, the darkest installment of his collection. And while I would not pretend to be an expert on Ray Dennis Steckler by any means, I think I've seen 3 of his movies now, this being the 3rd. It is a pretty dark film. It's a mid-60s, quiet black and white, because black and white is cheaper, film. Runs a little over an hour, 72 minutes or so. A lot of running, a lot of fighting, but it is pretty grim, especially for Ray. My earliest memories of Ray Dennis Steckler are from the books I used to get at the local public library, where I would read about cult movies and bad films, bad quotes. You know, a lot of the movies that were in those bad film books are pretty entertaining. It's the really bad films where somebody spent a lot of money to make something that's not watchable. But getting beyond that, this started out with some black and white narration. There was a point where I was going to go, oh, it's all shot mute without sound, and it's just going to have narration. This is going to drag for 70 minutes. But you get a few minutes of narration, some great black and white footage of Hollywood back in the mid to late 60s. And it goes from there. And just within a couple minutes, you have a traveling salesman getting shot to death, and Ray's playing the main character. And I'm used to, my mental pictures of Ray are from that book, those books when I was a kid, and the first one that pops in my head is him doing his Hunts Hall impersonation from the Bowery Boys or East End Kids or whatever, and he's pulling the face and looping, and he is just mean. His character is so mean in this film. He's first see him, he looks like a weasel or a rat or something. It's just his expression and the way he holds himself, and it's like, wow, okay, this guy can actually act a little bit. This is not so bad in amongst the directing and the writing and everything else that Ray did for this. But it was a really pretty dark, moving forward. A few dead spots, not too bad. For 70-some minutes, you hope there aren't going to be a lot of dead spots. There is a lot of running and a lot of fighting. Because the main conflict comes from, you've got a wannabe actor and his former wannabe actress wife, conflicting about whether he should stay in the business or not, and it's not working out, and I got all this debt. She goes to visit her cousin, who runs a little diner up, in the mountains a little bit north of wherever they are. I'm not being an expert in California geography. I'm not sure how far she had to go, but there's also some inmates that have escaped from the local loony bin who are very violent and very strange, very crazy. And the characters that they play are very distinct from one another, and that's one of the things I did rather enjoy about this, that they aren't just manic, hey, let's go kill people, crazy types. They all have their own little twitch that makes them interesting from each other, not that they're just this team. And even the one guy who turns out is brothers with Cash Flag, or Ray Dennis Steckler's homicidal maniac character, wants to be rid of them because even he knows that they're crazy. So I'm not sure whether he completely believes he is or not, but that's beside the point. A lot of the end of the film is chase sequence. I won't deny that. They go from one chase sequence and a fight to another one. At least that one's on horseback and motorcycle, which is that much stranger. But Ray is just mowing people down in this film. He doesn't pause. There is some surprisingly, it creeped me out actually a little bit, because there's a point where the character, he takes she's a dancer, which I'm not sure how to take from 60s. It looks, it was like a dance hall type thing where you pay like a dime a dance to dance with a gal. And it seems to just, all that makes me trigger is old World War II movies where they had the soldiers going off to war, and you'd have gals that would just, they'd pay a dime to dance with a couple of gals, and then they'd be shipped off to the Pacific and probably, mowed down on an island somewhere. So I didn't know that necessarily existed into the 60s, and he pays her extra money to go back to her apartment. It's like, sure, they're going to talk. And he just, like that, and flips out, and just starts smacking her around in a way that's just really odd. And there's a light flashing. It's a very impactful sequence. It's, for lack of a better expression, Ray Dennis Steckler's psycho shower scene. There's a neon light flashing outside the apartment, so you only get these bursts of activity, and he's got a pair of scissors, and it's like, is it in that hand that he's darting forward with? Is he just going to slug this woman again? And it makes for a very powerful sequence. The movie itself is good. It's very solid and entertained me, kept my attention, which is always appreciative. It is black and white, and as I said, there are a lot of chase sequences in it. So again, not going to recommend it necessarily for everyone. But if I've made it sound interesting at all, give it a watch. Honestly, it's not going to take up a lot of your time. And Ray Dennis Steckler, for being derided so long in those books when I was a kid as being a bad filmmaker, I would refute that, to say the least. He may not have been able to put together a consecutive run of quality cinema, but he was a good low-budget filmmaker, definitely. I'm not going to try and twist anybody's arm into saying that this is some sort of lost classic or anything like that, but it's an enjoyable film. For being as violent it is not particularly graphic, and it's a very enjoyable